Hi and welcome. Today we're going to talk about a map that's mentioned more than any other in the comments under my videos, and I'll show you the strategies that I personally use on it. Let's start from the northwestern spawn. The first phase of the battle will take place around sector C1. As soon as you arrive at your hill, the first thing I recommend is to take down these two trees so they don't block your view later on. Now we need to keep an eye on several key areas, which I'll mark on the screen. Zone number 1 is a spot where fast-wheeled vehicles sometimes rush at the start of the match. Zone 2 is our kill box, where we can easily catch enemies who are rushing straight for the capture point. Zone 3 is the open field that the enemy usually crosses on their way to the point, so we're mostly interested in it as a source of information rather than a shooting position. And finally, Zone 4 is the hill in Sector E2, which is often used by enemy players to set up and control the area. Once we've made sure there are no enemies rushing for the capture point on our left, we also need to check the enemy hill in Sector E1. Also, don't forget that in rare cases, an enemy might try to flank through the forest on the right. However, we have great cover from that direction, and in most situations, you'll hear them coming long before they see you. I know this is a lot of information, and if you're new to my channel, it might even look like I'm just making things up on the spot and describing a single match instead of an actual strategy. That's why I'll try to include clips from different battles so you can get a better idea of how this strategy works in real matches. The first phase of the battle takes place at this position. Here we play as carefully as possible, gather intel, and try to catch enemies rushing blindly for the capture point. Our main goal is to stop the enemy from crossing into our half of the map, because if we're not holding this area, I'll show you on the opposite side what happens when we lose control of the left flank. This position is great. It's not difficult to play from here, but there are two key rules you should always remember. Rule number 1, never go over the top of the hill unless you've confirmed that no one is watching you from Zone 4 or Sector E1. Rule number 2, in 9 out of 10 cases, if you haven't made any major mistakes, the only places you'll get shot from are the side road or the hill in Sector D2. So whenever you're not engaged in a fight, make sure to check those spots. Also, I strongly do not recommend driving up to capture the point from this position, because the enemy has too good a view of the road you'll be taking. Personally, I leave the actual point captures to my teammates because most of your allies are pretty experienced at it and they can stand in the cap circle for 15 seconds like pros. For some of them, it's literally the only way to earn anything that match. Alright, no more jokes. Once we're sure the enemies are gone, we push forward. Our objective is to get to the enemy hill in Sector E1. From this hill, we get a pretty good view of the exits from the enemy's closest spawn. Once we climb to the top, we have two ways to play from here. If you're using a tank with good gun depression and solid armor, you can easily hold this position for the rest of the match. Let me put it this way. If you enjoy close quarters combat, then you definitely don't need to go anywhere. Sooner or later, the enemies will push right up to you, and that's when you'll get to brawl with them up close. This position is always a lot of fun to play, but this is also where the fight stops following a set script, and you'll have to improvise and rely on your own skills. The one important tip to keep in mind during the match: don't forget to check to your left. Sometimes you'll be able to catch enemies coming out of the far spawn and moving toward the center of the map. If this hill position isn't your style and you prefer some cheeky, annoying tactics, and your conscience allows a bit of spawn camping, then we should head to Sector F1. The developers gave us a perfect spot here, with great cover and a full view of the enemy spawn. I think any additional tips would be unnecessary. You'll figure out how to play this position on your own. On slower tanks, I play exactly the same way, and there aren't really any special tips to keep in mind. You just need to be a bit more careful and keep an eye on the minimap to see if an enemy has made it to the capture point. Things get a bit trickier on tanks with poor gun depression. To take out an enemy on the hill in Zone 4 or on the hill in E1, you basically have to fully expose yourself from cover. Here's a small trick. There's a slight dip in the terrain near us. I use it to peek at the enemy on the hill to the left. And if I see someone on the hill in Sector E1, I try to trade shots while positioning my tank like this. The most important rule for Soviet tanks: never climb this hill in a way that the enemy can see your entire hull, because with their slow reverse speed, you won't have time to get back into cover and you'll just end up in the garage. And of course, for a Soviet tank with terrible gun depression, there's absolutely no reason to climb to the top of the hill in Sector E1. So you either wait for the enemies to come to you and fight them in close combat, or you go straight for some spawn camping. The rule here is the same: never drive up onto the hill and never expose yourself to enemy fire. The city part of the map is much simpler. At the start of the match, I move into cover between two buildings in Sector D5. From this position, we get a great view of two key streets while staying well protected behind solid cover. Most of the time, enemies will be to our left, hiding behind the corners of the large building. In city fights, there isn't much strategy involved. About 50% of your success depends on how patient you are and how long you can wait for your opponent to make a mistake. The other 50% depends on Gaijin's servers flipping a coin to decide whether your shot does damage or not. Basically, I just slowly push toward the enemy spawn, taking it one block at a time. Before we move to the other side, I just want to say a quick thank you, guys. I honestly don't have the words to explain how grateful I am. This channel has grown so much in less than a year. It's crazy. You have no idea how much positive energy you give me and how much brighter you've made my life. Thank you so much for that. And of course, a huge shout out to all the channel members for your amazing support. I really appreciate it. From the opposite side of the map, our gameplay starts right from the spawn. Our task is as simple as it gets. Count how many teammates spawned with you. If you're the only one who spawned on this side, I recommend heading to the hill in Sector E1. It's an easy position to remember. There's a tent right where we'll be playing, so you don't even need to memorize it on the mini-map. It's easy to find just by sight. Once we reach this hill, there will be 4 key areas we need to keep under control. Areas 1 and 2 are the shortest routes to the capture point. This is where we'll most often spot enemies rushing straight for it. Area 3 is the forest, as well as the position we use when playing from the opposite side, and Area 4 is the hill where enemies often push from when they go on the offensive. Guys, I want you to understand the main idea here. This position is actually pretty bad. We only use it if our team has completely abandoned the left side of the map. Our goal here is simply to make it look like our team is still fighting for the point and to buy as much time as possible while holding this hill. Because once we lose this position, our team will also lose access to the left spawn. If we get reinforcements, or if at least 2 or 3 teammates spawn with us at the start, we move to Sector D1 and join the fight for the point. From this position, we have partial visibility on the capture point, we can keep an eye on the forest to our left, and we also have partial control over the hill to the right. In most cases, it's quite easy to pick up a couple of kills from here. You should also know that we can move along the ridge in front of us to get a different angle on the same positions. Basically, the first phase of the match revolves around these 2 spots, the start of the ridge and the end of it. We constantly move between them, looking for good shots and easy kills. If you know the enemy is pushing hard, I recommend shifting to the end of the ridge to meet them head-on, but always keep in mind that you can fall back to the starting position if needed. In most matches, you'll end up fighting in close quarters against enemies trying to take control of our hill in Sector E1 or push into Sector G1 to start spawn camping. Stopping those players is your main objective here. Once we've cleared out the enemies and won the fight for the point, it's time to move on to the second phase and start pushing forward. Our goal is to reach Sector B1. The path to that position is pure randomness. There's always a chance that some enemy is hiding somewhere in Sectors B2 or B3, just waiting for you to drive by. So stay alert along the way and make sure to check every hill in front of you before moving forward. Once we reach this position, the enemy loses access to their left spawn point, and that's when we start farming a solid number of kills. This is a very strong position, but you should know that in about 1 out of 10 matches, there'll be an enemy who knows a little trick that can get you killed. Here's the thing. If you take out an experienced player from this spot, they'll often respawn at the far spawn point, climb the hill in Sector A5, and get a perfect line of sight on your position. So don't just focus on spawn camping. Remember to check your right side from time to time. Whenever I get this map, I almost always stick to this strategy. Not just because if everything goes according to plan, I can rack up a solid number of kills, but also because the team playing from the southern side often completely ignores the left flank and gives it up without a fight. That's why I try to play on the left side and do the job no one else wants to do. The only position I feel I absolutely have to mention is in Sector D2. I usually only play here with vehicles suited for a support role, but in situations where the map gives me a single capture point on the right, I use this spot even on stronger tanks. From here, we get an excellent overview of the enemy half of the map. However, because the map is basically made up of small hills, the terrain makes precise shooting difficult, which is why this position works really well for light tanks. Even if we can't always score kills, we can always spot enemies on the minimap for our teammates. The main directions we need to watch from here include the road running across the entire map, the huge field on the enemy side where opponents push toward the center or right flank, partial visibility of the left capture point, and the key position we use when playing this map from the opposite side. I hope this video was helpful for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.